You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I am Danielle Washington, your host, and I am crazy excited about today. I feel like I say that all the time, but you're about to have a hella good conversation. Yo, this is it. Courage Molina is I know I say this, but I'm really mean this. She's the bomb.com. Yo, seriously. I low-key was I had a girl crush on her. Not I want to sleep with her or anything like that. No, she's cute. But, it was more I just loved her energy, and I loved just how she just, took and embodied her name as being this courageous woman who was just doing some amazing stuff. And then I learned more about her story and, reading her book, The Power Principles, Courageous Living, How I Overcame Depression and Took Back My Life. She shares testimonies along with principles about how she completely transformed her way of thinking in life. And we often don't think about the habits we have behind our thoughts, the habits that affect our identity. I'm not talking about habits. When we think of habits and routines, we think often about, I brush my teeth. That's a routine. I, like to go for walks and I'm eating healthy. But we don't think about the habits of saying to ourselves, I'm broke. It is what it is. And we talked about a lot of the stuff. I hope you enjoyed and came to our free masterclass we had earlier this week on ditching the survival mode now and to getting out of survival mode now and just so you can really thrive. But we don't always think about when we say these certain things, we have these habits of always saying, I'm broke or I'm not enough, and how that shows up in those thought processes and those habits of saying those thoughts and those feelings and those patterns really affect how we identify in our life. And today we're breaking down really how our thoughts and those habits and those thoughts are affecting our lives and how you can get out of it. And I'm telling you, Courage is she's such an amazing person. She just has a way of really just talking about self first. And if you've never thought about that mentality of self first, she breaks down what that really means and so many different things. So I am super, super excited. And, she was one of the people I knew when I created this podcast. I was like, Courage is going to be on this podcast. And so get ready. It's about to be fire, and let's go. Hey, Courage, and welcome to the Hella Well with Danielle podcast. I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like when you just said that voice that you use, I feel like this is like midnight jams, like we're about to talk about something salacious. I'm like, ooh.
On a side note, it's funny. I was talking to someone else that we know, and she's like, oh, I love your voice. And I'm like, yeah, back in the day, people used to think I had a phone sex voice. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, and definitely that little intro, it definitely sounds like we're about to talk about something on Midnight Love.
Well, it is about love, but not midnight love. We're talking everything about how our habits affect our identity. And I love this topic because it wasn't until I was having an aha moment with you. I was like, oh, yeah, habits aren't just, I'm, going to, exercise in the morning, I'm eating healthy. It's about how we think, how we talk in all these different ways. I would love to talk to you just about your initial thoughts on kind of this topic and, why you think it's important, or even how you got to this point of even recognizing this.
Well, initially, I started out with identity, right? Understanding what self-identity is for myself, because I found myself in a deep and dark depression where I literally was begging for death, right? I didn't want to live anymore. And that's not how, you're not always depressed. You were not born that way. So there was some journey that led me there. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the only person who's gone through things. How did I get to that space? And then I came out of it. Like, well, what did I do to come out of it, right? How is it that I can change how I see myself? And I started to do some research on that. Let me look at some of the things that I did. And it was in I didn't recognize it at the time, but it was in my habits, how I talked to myself, how I responded to things. The narrative that I gave about certain situations was always the same narrative. Anytime there was a dispute, it meant this, right? Anytime there was a setback, it could be a million different setbacks, okay? I don't care what the setback was. I didn't get into the school I thought I was going to get into. That means I'm not smart enough, right? If I didn't get the job I wanted, well, it's because I'm not smart enough. It's the same response over and over. And those repeated thoughts shaped my identity, how I saw myself, how I showed up in the world. Self identity is something not that we're born with. I think we think we're born with our identity, knowing who we are, but self identity is actually not even self, even though that is the term. It's something that someone else gave you. Someone else told you over and over habitually, girls are to be seen and not heard. Boys will be boys. You were told repeatedly what girl toys were and what boys toys were. And so that's how you identified what was feminine and appropriate behavior, and whether or not you were good or bad was based on what you did. Then you got older and society told you what your identity was, but they told you that repeatedly. You had repeated experience that showed you that Black women have to be strong, that we're not helped, that we have to work twice as hard. Those messages are given to us repeatedly over time, and then we respond the same way every time. Then I realized, hey, I changed how I saw myself through my habits. I stopped speaking to myself this way, and I started my day. I'm a huge proponent of morning routine, and I know that you have a morning routine. I support that, right? I definitely support that.
Morning and evening routine.
Listen,
I feel like we need to do both.
Come on, I might need to add an evening routine because my days are great.
Because the thing is, you start the day off great and you're doing this morning routine and you have things going the day and you're smoothing through. But how you end your day will also help how you start your day. And that's why I believe in having a morning and an evening routine.
I love that. I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to start that. But I started this morning routine, and the morning routine was what led to new habits, right? Routines lead to habits. We know that. So I started speaking about myself differently and questioning my thoughts and built this habit. And then I started to realize, wow, who I am, right, as a result of what I do repeatedly. So if I want to change who I am, if I look in the mirror and I don't like the woman that's looking back at me, I can change it. I just need to get a new routine and change my habits. I want to be, healthier. I want to be whatever. I can do the habits, do the daily things that healthy women do. Healthy women drink more water. So I'm going to start drinking more water. And 5 years from now, they
Sorry.
Listen. It might be said that happy women drink wine, right? I'm not happy. Let me not say that. I'm not advocating self-medicating with wine for happiness. Don't y'all email me nothing. Y'all can send all your email complaints to Danielle at hellowellwithdanielle.com. Don't send them to Courage, right? But it's that understanding that, who I am is what I do repeatedly. Then if I want to change that, I want to get in alignment with how I want to see myself or who I truly am, I can change my habits.
And it's interesting something that came up to me recently, because I've been on this personal development journey for a bit, but just I think more and more keeps coming up, which is normal. I always talk about it being like a video game. You get to one level, you master it, and then you're on to the next level. And something that came up recently to me is getting out of my comfort zone with my communication with myself. And I was like, ooh, I didn't think about that. I'm like, because I talk about getting out of your comfort zone in how you do certain things, but I never thought about how I communicate with myself. And so one of the things I always find myself saying, and I didn't really catch myself doing it or really start paying attention and trying to change it until the end of 2020 is I tell myself, yo, B, this, B, it's short for bitch.
Right.
And that's how I've been talking to myself. And I'm just like, that ain't loving. There's nothing about that says love. And I'm not Jay-Z calling out for my wife or something else. So why am I calling myself a B over and over and over again and just reiterating that to myself? And so I started doing this thing where I'm like, okay, L. Okay, L. L stands for love. I'm like, okay, love, or D, short for either Danielle or dear. Okay, dear. Okay, love. And so having that change in how I'm talking to myself, just in like also I'm catching myself just when I do say it, I'm like, okay, let's write this down. So like almost check it. I'm like, okay, this is how many times you've been talking negatively yourself. How did you go about changing the talk to yourself? Because I feel like that this has been a struggle. Like even in recognizing it, but just even to like shifting how I'm talking to myself.
Um, that's such a great question. I'm laughing before I even give you the answer. Honestly, when I started, I'm just very intentional about everything. I see a problem and I'm like, I'm kind of a nerd that way. What's a plan? And I'm going to tell you this. And I'm a Christian girl. I love the Lord. But I'm going to tell you right now, nothing boosts up your self-esteem more than some rap lyrics. Okay. Because
Yeah.
they're all the best. I don't care who you listen to or who you like. They're not saying, "Oh, I'm not that good. I'm kind of all right." There are lots of people who are better than me, right? And so I started listening to music that made me feel like, yes, friend, you so cute. Like changed up my attitude about how I talk to myself and how I saw myself. And I love music. So listening to the lyrics and even using those phrases for myself, it was a game changer. So even right now, as everyone's favorite Bible teacher, I have a, rap playlist that I listen to with great intent on a weekly basis because don't nothing say I'm the dopest, I'm the bestest like rap music. It just nobody says it like that.
Okay, so of course I'm gonna ask what songs get you going in the morning? Like what is your hype song? Like I'm feeling myself song.
Okay, so some of my favorite hype songs are Drippin' and Finesse. First of all, I love Cardi B. Cardi
Oh
B
wait,
and
dripping.
Bruno
Oh,
Mars.
that's Cardi B. I don't know Cardi. Yes, I feel like I'm such about to lose my black card. I'm like, I know who Cardi B is. I don't think I really know her music. What's not listening to it.
Dripping. It's called Finesse, right? And it's Cardi B and Bruno Mars, and they are basically saying
Oh,
like,
I know that song.
yes,
Okay,
people they come in, they look so great, right? I also love the song "Please Me" with Cardi B, and it's also Bruno Mars, OT Genesis, Everybody Mad, because I feel like that's how it feels sometimes, right? Like people are not supporting you, or people are talking trash about you. So this is good. Everybody mad because I'm getting this money, right? Like that attitude that rap music just has. Kendrick Lamar,
Oh
DNA.
yes.
I got, I got, I got, I
Kendrick
got.
Lamar is on my list to help hype me up all the time.
Listen, I got loyalty and royalty. It's in my like nothing says
It's
I'm
in my
super. It's
DNA.
in my DNA, right? So
Yes.
I love anything with a hot beat, but the lyrics are also important. And so I have an entire playlist that I
Now, do
listen
you have
to.
an entire playlist on Spotify that you can share with our listeners?
Yes, you can follow me on Spotify, Courage Molina. That's where I am everywhere, and you can see all the playlists that I have because I pretty much use music to support whatever journey I'm on. Right, so I have a playlist for crying. I have a playlist for
So
those.
you I'm sorry. So you cried and you're like, okay, and cue the crying.
Well, it's because you already know that you need to cry. Like maybe it was a rough day, and there's that we have this resistance. I feel like sometimes we have this resistance to crying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry about this. It's dumb that I want to cry. I'm not gonna. Well, it's dumb that you're not gonna cry. You don't not go to the bathroom because you just went to the bathroom yesterday. Like, if you gotta pee, you go pee. So if you gotta cry, just cry. Just let it out. It's the same sentiment, right? And
What's a
so,
cry song?
um,
Now I'm like going down this rabbit, like, what's a cry song?
okay, well, it depends, right? So if I'm upset, I've been married for 20 years. 20 years? It'll be 20 years in March,
Dang.
right? So if I'm like hating his guts, because I've had this playlist for a long time. If we're really going through a difficult season, then it might be something like "Can You Stand the Rain?" Right? Because I'm gonna,
Nah. Good old new edition. I was like,
right?
yeah.
Storms will come. I'm so sad about it.
I
Going
feel
in
like
circles. Jasmine Sullivan, Fantasia. She's got great things to cry to. Okay, like
you got some
you can
baby face
cry.
on there too, I'm
Yes, I
assuming.
got some baby face on that. Listen, lots of things that you can cry to. But if I'm crying out like my heart, my spirit, I'm struggling, I'm trying to get over something, I'm fighting the enemy, then I have a specific, like, I am crying out to God. Like, this is like my SOS to God. Tasha Cobb's I'm Getting Ready,
Mm, I love that. That's on
Leandria
the
Johnson, Exodus. Like, these songs help me to, like, sometimes these are the words of your heart, but you just can't put them into, action. And so that's what the songs are for. I love a playlist for those types of things. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Music has been a huge part of my life. Back in the day, I used to tell people music is my first love and dancing is my mistress because music has just totally shaped who I am. Like even totally dating myself again. Back in the day when you had those, your voicemail and that you would like the machine that you would have, not, some other thing, the machine you had. I would play music to show how I was feeling. So what I've always expressed myself through music. And that's why I also have a Hello Well with Danielle playlist, but more of a kind of these are the songs that pump me up and get me going and get me feeling good. But I don't have one I have. So I'm about to tell him myself. I'm gonna tell him myself. I have a sex one, but I don't have
Oh,
one
really?
for. Oh, because I used to back in the day. I actually used to sell playlists that were like kind of like those baby making music playlists. I was like the mom at
Wow.
making those.
Yeah.
So
You had
I
a
still
mixtape.
kind of on the side make my own. Not saying I have any use of them, but I've never thought of ones to kind of really focus in on getting emotions out. So I love that you have that. I may have to follow
Oh,
suit on
yes.
that
I
one.
have a sex one. I have a sexy one, right? I feel like sometimes we just don't feel sexy or we want to feel sexy and
Mhm.
whatever is happening. And so, floor, like a mirror, right? With just a t-shirt, my underwear, my super cute socks. I'm gonna be singing my sexy song and I'm gonna be stripping in my mirror, like probably not really stripping, but in my mind, right?
Mine, I am the best stripper you've ever seen.
Exactly. I'm gonna pretend like I got these knees, like my '90s knees is what I got. It's okay. Okay. So yeah, I have a playlist for everything, and I feel like you know those thoughts because that either so what you take in, they're either going to support you on this journey, they're going to support you with the habits that you're trying to build and the identity that you want to claim for yourself, or they're not. So I don't like to waste a lot of time, right? I need things that are going to support me. And if this is going to support my habit of speaking, more positively to myself, well, then let me
Yeah.
go do what I need to do so I can do that.
Yeah. And then you talked about earlier, and I totally agree with, a lot of our quote unquote habits, as I air quote in the air, y'all can't see that. They aren't from us. They're from society, our parents. And so one of my friends wrote this book called Castle, why did I just slip the name of the book? Spirit Hacking, Shaman Derek. And he talks about this matrix and how it's almost like this freaking cult of this mentality that, we think we are supposed to be this certain way in this box, but it really isn't. And you look at kids that are young, they don't have this and they get this social influence from our parents and our parents take on whatever they have. And so we aren't being our authentic selves once we start getting socialized. Like we kind of lose who we are right away once our parents are like, okay, this is how we're supposed to do things. This is how you're talking. Like I love how you talked about, this is how you show up. Your kids are supposed to be seen, not heard. Black women need to be strong. Boys need to play with these toys. Like it took a while for me even to come to the knowledge of, oh, I'm in this matrix. I'm living this should life. What are
Mm.
some tips you can help people to get out of that kind of that thought process of what they think they should be living and into their own authentic selves?
Exposure. You need to get exposed
Go
to
start getting free with your body. No, I'm
yeah.
joking.
Well, that might help too, right? Like, because there are probably some preconceived things that we should and shouldn't do as women of faith from my community. Like, oh, we shouldn't. There are probably some of those things. So yes, exposure to that too. But exposure to different perspectives and different way of thinking, people who live differently from you. If we start to if we start to intentionally get involved in communities or expose ourselves to even just the messages of people who don't believe like us, don't live like us, have different traditions than us. And we do so from a space of they're not wrong, they're just different. it kind of broadens our vision of what is possible, what might be okay, right? And then ask ourselves, okay, if I believe this to be true, who told me that? My oldest child is trans male. She's my trans son. I don't know the vocabulary. Please do not get in my inbox about my improper vocabulary. Okay. But
but represents himself or herself as she, he, she, her, she.
No, she. Micah was born a girl, prefers the pronouns he,
okay,
and him, right? So trans male is, I think, what it is.
That's
and my
right, yeah.
youngest is lesbian, and this is important because I will say things without thinking, right? I'll say like why can't you just dress like a girl, right? Like when you're going out with me, right? And I don't mean my oldest, I mean my youngest, my lesbian. I'm like, why you gotta wear that? Can you just look like a girl for today? Okay. Now, what is up? She's 18. And they always say things to me like, Mom, clothes don't have gender. And I just laugh because I'm like, oh, I guess that's true.
It is true.
I'm like, oh, so that's something that we said, right? We decided that the dresses are like, those are girls' dresses. Maybe they were created with a certain person in mind, but this thing doesn't necessarily have a gender. And so even my understanding of just life and the way I think things are constantly disrupted by these young people that I gave birth to. I have a 24-year-old, a 20-year-old, and an 18-year-old, and they just lived so vastly different. And exposing myself to the, listen, having conversations, being exposed to their way of thinking. God, y'all say a prayer for me, but just being exposed to the way they see the world helps me to question some of my own. But I think that we don't always want to question the status quo. So we would rather be wrong. We'd rather be miserable than to challenge the things that we've been handed down for centuries. We'd rather just like stay
in the comfort zone. Yeah, it's because it's easier. Because in the comfort zone, even if it's pain you're feeling, even if it's sorry you're feeling, that pain. It's not some new pain that you have to understand and recognize. And so, yeah, it's easier to stay in that comfort zone of, woe was me, this is my life.
Right. It's insane how dedicated we are to our pain and our misery. Like we are more committed to our pain and misery and the way things have always been than we are for the thing that our heart and our spirits and our souls are longing for. We're longing to be free of these constructs, these social constructs, but we don't want to challenge them. It's like you said, it's because it's easier.
Yeah, and I won't sit here and say personal development is easy. It's fucking hard.
Oh, girl.
It's nothing easy about personal development. No one said, sign up here. This will be easy. And if they do, it is a scam. It is work.
Listen,
It is hella
I
work.
think the hardest part of personal development is becoming more self-aware, right? Like getting honest about the things that you believe or that you've believed or that you've perpetrated out in the world. Like, oh, so I'm actually, oh, that's okay. I didn't know that about myself. Like coming to terms with your own crap. I think that's the most difficult. But if you're willing to come to terms with your own crap, then there is a journey, hellish as it may be, it's worth it to go through it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been reading something. I've been reading a lot lately, but it was talking about how the word persona, the Latin word for that is mask. And
Wow.
persona is, the root of personality, but the Latin root of that is mask. And think, if you have a persona, and we have so many personas, especially I feel like as women, professional women, I feel like oftentimes we have the work persona, we have the I'm with my friends persona, we're with others persona.
Yeah.
But we wear so many different masks that when you have all these different masks that you're putting on, sometimes it's really hard to know, oh, wait, which one is the real me? Or is there a real me behind those masks?
Right. Or are these all just pieces of me, right? I am this way and I want to be seen this way at work. But when I'm with my friends, I want to have the freedom of letting go. And maybe I want to curse a little bit, or maybe I want to drop it like it's hot with my friends. But when I'm out and about, I want to be seen a different way. Maybe it's not that I have to choose between all of them. Maybe I am all of them. We're multifaceted, right? I'm not one thing. And part of that is like you said, like society has such a huge impact on how we see ourselves. that until we recognize that and start asking, like, okay, right, who am I really? What behavior is really true to who I am? And how can I show up in spaces as my most authentic self, even if it makes others uncomfortable? There's a song by Erica Badu and Janelle Monáe. It's called Queen, like the
Mhm.
acronym. And there's a section where Erica Badu is saying, even if it makes others uncomfortable, I will love who I am. I'm like, yes, that is what I'm saying. Even if it makes others uncomfortable, I will love who I am. Sometimes who you are will make other people uncomfortable. You have to be okay with people being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? You got to be okay with people being uncomfortable with who you are. Just moving on from that.
And I think oftentimes as women, we get we get nervous. We're like, we don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable. We don't want to make someone feel guilty, and so we hide who we are. We hide our shine. We hide our joy, our authentic self, because we want to make other people feel comfortable. And that is not the way to live.
Awesome. So for me, the topic of habit and identity is super important because if you are not your true self, then you cannot do the work that you've been created to do. You cannot succeed and reach your full potential when you're showing up as other people, right? And so if I need to change my habits so I can be my true self, then I'm going to do that. I am more committed to the work I was created for than making people feel comfortable. That
Yeah.
requires a self first mindset, and not from a place of selfishness, but from a place of I was called to serve people in some manner. I'm called to bless people, and so, like, my existence should add value in some space, right? Whatever space I'm in, I'm adding value. I can't, my value is diminished when I don't show up as my full self. And so I'm more committed to the people I'm called to serve than the people who may be made uncomfortable by who I am. And that's true. I feel like that's especially true in some of the circles that I've been in, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm in the faith industry,
Yeah.
and so there is like this expectation that comes with that. There's this church cultures, and I live in the South, so I don't know what church culture is anywhere else, but in the South, it's strong. It's you can feel it when you
Very
cross that
true.
Mason Dixie line. You can
It
feel
feels scary for us West Coasters. I'm like, oh
okay,
Lord,
you
you
can
picked the
feel
other
the
side.
listen, you can feel the hellfire of the church coming down. And so there's so many things that are tied to the culture of being a Christian, the culture of being in the church, that when a person like myself feels called into ministry, there's a pause. Like, I listen to rap music, so I have to stop listening to rap music, and now I got to wear dresses. God help me, I got to wear pantyhose. I have to change the way I talk.
Pantyhose, girl. They still make those?
Listen, I'm telling you,
We in the South, my bad.
they still wearing pantyhose. Somebody asked me about pantyhose. I was like, wait, what? She was like, yeah, we'd like for you to come and speak. And she met me in an outreach ministry, and I always wear jeans and a t-shirt, which is pretty much how I show up, even to
Yeah.
speak. She was like, well, when you come, can you wear pantyhose? I was like, no. I'm like, I'm
I'm like,
not wearing
deal
pantyhose.
breaker, unless you're paying me $1,000,000.
Right.
No.
Like, I'm not wearing pantyhose. I'm like, I'll probably put on a dress because I know that's what you prefer, and I own them. It's fine. I'm like, but I'm like, you're definitely not going to see me in a pair of pantyhose. You've lost it. She was like, well, Miss Courage will take what we can get. I'm like, good. But it's that type of thing, right? People are not comfortable that I'm comfortable with being in torn jeans and high top Vans, sitting in church, or even preaching. You
Yeah.
are uncomfortable because I'm not coming in here with all that extra artillery on. I want to be comfortable when I come into this space. And so when we're more concerned about that, that can easily rob us of the work that we've been called to do. Right.
And can you talk a little bit more about the self-first concept? I've heard it before and I love it.
Listen, the self first mindset freed me in a way. I've always kind of been this way anyway, where I put myself first. But there was like this negative connotation with it, right? Because people see that as selfish when you don't do what people want you to do, when they want you to do it, how they want you to do it, and you don't have what they consider to be a good reason, they feel like that is selfish. And so as I began to accept myself, I just kind of accepted that as like, well, that's just a negative part of me. that I'm okay with. But there's still this like part of you that doesn't want any negative thing to be identified with you, right? And so I was listening to a podcast, Redefining Wealth, and I don't even know who the lady was on there. And
I
she
forgot
was,
her name. I remember I
you
heard
remember
the
this,
same.
right?
Yeah.
She started
It was with
explaining
the
it.
L, like not Lucinda, but something. You go to the L.
I
I could
don't
be
know what
wrong.
her name
I
is.
don't
I
know.
have no idea, but it was such a good. I listened to that podcast 5 times because she was describing the behavior that she described is how I live my life. If someone asks me a question, I think about how it's going to impact me. Do I have the capacity to do this? Do I have the time? Do I have the money? Do I have the desire? Do I even feel like doing it? Right? That's actually the first one. Do I have the desire? That first one, if I don't feel like it, it's a no. I don't care if I have the time, the money, and the space. I don't have the desire, it's a smooth no. I'm not going to hold you off. I'm not going to say I'm going to think about it. And I'm not going to give you no excuse or reason. I'm going to say, oh, Courage, can you? No. No, thank you. I appreciate you asking me, but no, thank you. No, I'm not coming. No, I'm not going. No, I'm not doing it. Right. She described that. And then she was like, it's not a selfish mindset. It's a self first. Because when you commit to something, yourself, that's the person who's got to show up to follow through. Not
Yeah.
your feelings aren't there helping you move somebody into a new apartment because they
Mm.
asked you to help them. I'm not helping anybody move. Do you hear what I'm telling you? I ain't helping my cousin move, my auntie. My mother came and my mother lived with me here. She moved to Florida. She moved back to Florida. She's got a house down there. I was so excited that two of my male cousins and my kids were here because I was like, I can bring some of these boxes. I'm like, but I'm not going to be moving the whole day long. I
I
don't want to
can't.
do that. Can I order
But I
lunch?
love it.
Can I get some lemonade for y'all or something? Because I know y'all work hard. Let me get y'all something to eat, right? Like just having the freedom to put myself first because I'm the one that has to show up and do the thing. And I'm the only person that knows what other things I need to do, whether or not I've taken some time for self care. I did insurance for a while, like a retirement planning.
Yeah.
And so you have to call people and say, hey, I'd love to meet with you, talk about your policy, whatever. So I called this old guy. They're all old, but he was like super old. You could tell in his voice. I was like, hey, Mr. Washington, I'd like to have a
Why are you
conversation.
calling out my dad old? His birthday's coming up. He's about to be 81, but he ain't that
Okay,
old.
81. He probably sound about 70. Okay, on the phone. They sound old. You hear me? You call him up.
Yes.
I'm like, hey, I'd love to come out and meet with you, talk to you about that. And he said, mm-mm. He said, you sound real cute. You cute? I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, well, you sound cute, but I'm gonna tell you this: I'm too busy doing nothing to meet with you. I was like, what?
If my dad knew that phrase, he would use it.
I was like, wait, what? What did you say? I guess I was like, oh, I'm too busy working. I'm too busy something else. He's like, no, I'm too busy doing nothing to meet with you. I was like, and he did meet with me, by the way. He's like, you sound cute. But baby, I'm just too busy doing nothing to be meeting with you. I'm retired and I've worked my whole life so I can sit around and do what I'm doing. Nothing at all. And I thought, that is a man who makes no apologies or excuses for the fact that he is not running around doing something. And I think that when you have a self first mindset, you take your rest and relaxation into consideration. When other people, they don't know that I've given 10 other yeses. And so while I don't have anything planned on this Saturday, I've had something to do every Saturday for the last 5 Saturdays. Or this is the Saturday
Yeah.
that I've set aside to do nothing so that I don't get backed up with not taking care of myself and not resting. This is a part of my life. This is a part of my life. So like every single Monday after work, that's my me time. I don't owe that to anybody. I can literally do anything that I want. I don't care what you need. You ain't getting it from me on no Monday night. I'm unavailable. I'm busy dating myself. And that's because I have to put myself first, because the rest of the week, I know what my calendar and my things are. So I have to put myself first when I'm making a commitment. Who's showing up for the commitment? Me, you know?
And when you first started living that way, did you have any resistance, and how did you get through
Yes, there
that?
was tons of resistance. People will flat out call you selfish, like to your, especially if they are related to you.
Yeah.
If they don't share your DNA, they're probably, they're thinking it, but they may not say it. But if they're related to you, they're like, you're just so selfish. And I was just like, okay, that's cool. I'm still not doing it. Because here's
Did you have any resistance in yourself? And like I don't. I always feel like you embody your name so much, like courage. I'm like, so does courage ever have points where she feels guilty, or like, did you have any resistance in guilt or uneasiness when you first started living this self first
I don't.
mentality?
I'm not a person that it has a lot of guilt, just in general, and it's because of the nature of my character. I'm not perfect, so the idea that I'm never going to make mistakes—that's just a dumb thing to carry. I'm going to make mistakes, right? So I that's fine if I make a mistake. My question for myself as far as guilt is, did I know better at the time? Should I have known better? Did they deserve better? What information did I have right at the time? So even if I make a bad decision with what I thought was good information, I don't feel guilty about that. I apologize for it and I want to fix it. And I may feel bad about the outcome, but I don't walk away from that situation going like, oh my gosh, I feel so guilty. No, I'm not doing that. Another thing is, you in the beginning, what happens is you say no, you think you mean it, they accuse you of being selfish, they make you feel like crap.
Mm.
And then, even though you didn't want to do it, even though you initially said no, and you know how they are, you go through with it. And then while you're there, the lack of appreciation for the fact that you didn't get any sleep or that you changed your entire life around so that you could do this thing for them for 10 minutes and you ain't got to say thank you, but you actually talking trash about how I did it. Oh, this right here why I should have said no. And I make a mental note right then. This is why you shouldn't do things that you don't want to do, because if it doesn't go well or whatever, then not only are you annoyed that it didn't go well, you're also annoyed that you did it because you already didn't want to do it, or you already didn't want to go to the party. There are weddings that I've been invited to. They're like, are you going? No. Baby shower, are you going? No, I'm not going. I don't like baby showers. I don't care. I'm not going to a baby shower. Somebody's got to, I'm super related to that baby. If I'm going, I'm not going, I'm super related. Like, my nephew got a baby or
I feel you.
something.
I hate baby showers as well. I
Yeah.
love kids, but I hate baby showers. I hate baby showers and what are those like not bachelor,
Yeah. I don't,
bridal showers. Anything that has a shower with it,
they're not
count me
fun.
out.
The
I
food not that good. It's a mixed crowd. So you got these young people, you got these grandmas. So we can't actually do the stuff we like to. Kids are there. I don't even
yeah.
know. You said, I mean, I do like kids, but I don't want to go out. I don't want to go out where they're going to be like a lot of kids. Especially they're not my kids. They're not like my little cousin. I don't want to do that. So when you have those experiences and you're going and you're doing those things, then you
Mhm.
have this regret, and the other person does not care that you're unhappy. And so if it's a situation where one of us has to be unhappy, right? And it's just about our preference. We're not going to actually be physically hurt or somebody is happy. Let it be you, not me. It's like, if the choice is mine, oh, I'm not doing it. I'm not choosing things that I know make me unhappy. It just doesn't make sense to me.
No, that makes sense. And one last question I want to ask you, maybe it
Mhm.
might be one or two, is, one of the things I'm talking about a lot this year is the survival mode mindset. And I think we get into these habits. And I don't think people always realize, again, kind of going back to the beginning conversation, what their thought habits are that get them in this space. Like, can you give a couple examples of like thought habits that
Yes,
people
this
aren't
is one
aware
of the
of?
big ones, which is good enough. That's a thought habit. Like, whatever it is, like, oh, well, that's good enough. I wanted to go here, but this right here, this is good enough. Or this idea that, well, nothing's perfect. So when things aren't going the way you want, that answer to that is
Mm.
like, well, nothing's perfect. Everybody not going to be happy. This the fairy tale way. That's for movies. Just that kind of accepting that things are not going to be great. It's impossible to live peacefully and happily. Say 90% of the time. I feel like unless you're going through something traumatic, I don't know why you aren't experiencing peace and joy. So if you're experiencing true trauma, right? Somebody's dying. Somebody, like, you found out that there's something horribly wrong. You're going through a divorce, like you're in it right at that moment. But if you're just like living your day-to-day life and you are 80% of the time you're not happy, you should be asking, like, what is that about? And it's just this idea that there's no real expectation for peace, joy, and like being upbeat and positive. And that's a dangerous place because that's so close. That means that if you already live towards the bottom, that when trauma comes, it will take your life, right? I lived at the bottom. I lived in the good enough, nothing's perfect, kind of accepting where I am in life and accepting the thoughts that I have about myself and my financial situation and where I lived at the time and the state of my marriage, just accepting all of the crap that I desperately wanted to change as being regular life. When things got tough, that's when the depression and the suicide came because there was no barrier. I didn't have that far to go. I didn't have a mindset to combat those negative thoughts. I didn't have a mindset or strategies or habits, right, to help me fight off the things that I was dealing with every single day. So even if you're going through a traumatic time or you're going through a divorce, your habits are what are going to make or break you, right? So if you are constantly speaking negatively to yourself about the fact that the marriage didn't work out, about the fact that he cheated or she cheated, or now you got to start all over. If you're talking about that every day, let me give you a little secret here. Shh, don't tell anybody. That's actually not helpful. Okay. I don't know how you feel after you speak negatively about yourself, but my guess is you're not married now if you're in this process of divorce, right? It doesn't change the status of your marriage and it doesn't change how you feel. You're not like, oh, I feel so much better now that I was just talking about how I suck as a human being because my marriage has fallen. Like, that is not helpful. And so if you want to heal, you have to have a habit of doing things that keep you healed and healthy. I went to the hospital probably like back in 2014. I was sick. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick. And I got there and she ran some tests. I went to the doctor. I didn't go to the hospital. She ran some tests. She was like, Miss Molina, do you want to die? And I was like, no. She was like, you hesitated. I was like, well, I didn't know if that was a real question or if you were just saying that and you're going to make a point. She was like, no. Do you want to die? I was like, no, I don't want to die. She was like, people like you die when they get sick because they are severely dehydrated. She was like, if you were to get a stomach virus right now, your organs would probably shut down, right? She was like, and what people think is that when the virus comes, they can now start adding the water to hydrate themselves, but you can't because you don't have that as a habit. So your physical body is already starting out in a negative spot. So dehydrated, I could not produce saliva. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? She was like, when's the last time you had something to drink? And I'm like, I don't know.
Dang.
I'm like, if I'm honest, because I don't drink sodas and things like that. So it's not that I needed to replace my beverages with water. I only was drinking like coffee, which dries you out. It has the opposite effect, right? And then nothing else. And so I couldn't remember the last time. And she was like, you have to create a habit, these healthy habits, so that when the sickness comes, when something comes, you already have the habit. It's not going to be a struggle for you to continue to drink water, right? If you already have the habit of speaking to yourself positively when things are going well, then when your marriage takes a hit, you'll keep that same habit. You will still speak to yourself that way.
Yeah. And so one last thought. So what are tips for creating healthy habits when it comes to our thoughts? How can someone start by saying, okay, I want to do better? What
As a
kind of
part
habits
of
or
like
routines
your
can they do
morning
to help
routine or your
create
evening
healthier
routine, being
thoughts?
intentional about the messages that you're getting in, right? So a lot of times we don't have the proper vocabulary to even change our thoughts. Like, I don't even know how to take this word out of my mind. Like, I don't even know what to replace it with, right? Like, but it's true. I really am broke. What else can I say? I don't want to lie, right? If you start listening to positive messages or messages that are geared to help support you in whatever that area is, right? So let's say I'm struggling with wealth, right? I'm struggling with my finances. I'm broke. My credit is horrible. And so I say things like, I'm broke. I ain't got no money. I always owe somebody. I have so much debt. It's overwhelming. That's how I talk. And those are the thoughts that I have. And those thoughts create a narrative about how I see myself, because people who are broke are what? They're not as smart. They're not successful. So this is how, like, you have to see how the habits and your thoughts lead to your identity, right? Like that's the line that goes there. Change the messaging that you're listening to, right?
Mhm.
Like be intentional. What can I listen to in this area of parenting, of finances, of relationships, that can help me to acquire some new vocabulary? Because you can't think words you never heard of. Okay? You can't you can't think about phrases and things that you've never heard of before. So if you get into those spaces, they've completely removed the emotion out of it, right? If they have a podcast, if they have a YouTube channel, they've removed the emotion about the divorce, and now they're just talking to like, okay, it didn't work out. Like they're just trying to help you build, and so it's going to help you to exchange some of the vocabulary that you are using, because it's going to first start with your thoughts, right? I told y'all I have young adults, and they say things that I actually hate. They use words like bruh all the time and preach, which is so super annoying. Preach, like I appreciate it.
Wait, what's the
Fat.
second word? Girl, bye.
I want to throw things at them when I hear these stupid
I'm
words.
like, what is that
But you
word? I've
know
never heard
what?
that word before.
Because I am around them and I hear them use those words all the time. Do you know what I said to my husband the other day? I was like, preach. He did a double take. Like, he was like, I'm not your kids, man. Don't talk to me like that. And we both just kind of laughed. But it's the messaging that we get in, right? I don't say words I never heard. When you hear kids cursing out in public and the mom's like, oh my gosh, I don't know where he got that. Yes, you do. Where he spent his time. Hey, where does this kid spend their time? Because
Yeah,
that's
my
where they're
parents used to do
getting it
that.
from.
I'm like,
Because we're getting
you.
these messages, and those
You.
messages add to our vocabulary, and they inform our thoughts, and our thoughts inform our words, and which has an impact on our
Mhm.
actions, and what we do repeatedly, we become. So it's all tied together. I think we think that things are just in all these separate categories, but that's not life. The sentiment is that if something goes up, then something else goes down, right? So if there's going to be some improvement in one area, then in another area has got to decrease, right? But I don't believe in that. I believe that we were created to live an integrated life where all the pieces of our lives work together, like tapestry. There are different threads of our life. So if my faith is a thread and my self-care is a thread, and the threads that we use create the life that we live. And so it's not that one thing is more important than the other. It's always about what type of life, right, do you want to create? That's how I decide how much fabric I want to use. I'm designing my life by the habits. And if I choose to have an integrated life, then my self care routine helps with my identity, which helps with my confidence, and it has an impact on all of my relationships, right? That make up this thing that is my life. So it's all together. I think that we think the world is like this segmented thing. That's not how we experience life. That's not how this works. It all comes together. And so if I want to build my confidence, or if I want to see my true identity, it has to start with my habits, and my habits meaning my thoughts, because my thoughts lead to my words, my actions, what I do over and over, right? It's all connected. There's no way for me to see myself as I truly am and to be that person without changing how I think. It doesn't work that way. That's why people win millions of dollars and they go broke, right? Because they got that outcome, but they didn't change their thoughts about money, right? They have the surgery to lose the weight, but they didn't change
Yeah.
how they feel and interact with food. Their thoughts about how food works, that didn't change. Their habits are still the same, right? So I think it's important for us to keep that. Yeah, I think that's super important.
No, I think that's important. Yeah, no, and we had a podcast last week about mindset. So I think mindset just it all starts with the mind. It starts with our thoughts, and our habits kind of go with that. So I love that. Thank you so much for
Thank
pouring
you.
into our community. Like, I love it talking to you. I could talk to you for hours, but I'm like, we can't keep people on
I
forever.
encourage Molina everywhere.
So
So
how
wherever
can
you play, I'm
people follow
probably
you
there,
and
except for
dive
Twitter,
deeper
because Twitter's just
with
too much
you?
for me. Facebook, Courage Molina. Instagram, Courage Molina. Clubhouse, Courage Molina. YouTube, Courage Molina. All things, every place that I am, it's my name, Courage Molina. So you can find me wherever you like. I do. My podcast is Dose of Courage. You can also get to the
And then you
podcast
have a
through the YouTube
podcast as
channel because it's
well.
there. But also, however you listen to this podcast and your other favorite podcasts, I'm available there as well. Dose of Courage, and it's about having a revelation, right? Like if I think about what I'm going to be talking about on a podcast, it's like I want to open your mind or challenge you to think in a different way about something. And then I'm going to give you an assignment so you can put that new revelation into action. Growth doesn't happen without action. So we have to do things differently.
Awesome. And what I love to do on every podcast is some quick fire questions. Again, no, I'm not going to go after your social security number, something like that.
Okay.
So it's real easy. So, woosah, I see you.
LOL.
I am
Doing
not
what I
making
want,
anything
how I
hard. So
want,
whatever
because I
first thing
realized that I
comes to
was
mind.
created to do
So the
it
first
that
question
way.
is, what does
That's
living
living
hella well
hella
mean to
well.
you?
I'm doing what I want, how I want, because I realized I was created to do it that way. Let's go. Window, easy. I don't want people passing by me. I don't want to see people going to the
Love it.
bathroom.
Aisle or
I
window?
might want to be able to sleep. I want to control the light that come in. And I'm not getting up to go to the bathroom. I don't care how long the flight is. I flew straight shot from France to Miami. I think it was like 10 hours, 12 hours. No, I didn't get up one time.
I used to be that person, but when I started understanding my body and learning more, you really do need to hydrate on these planes because I've been on these 24-hour
have to say,
flights and
excuse
trying to be
me,
like,
I'm
I'm not
rolling
going to
my
the
eyes
bathroom
at
because
you.
I don't want to get up. I don't want to touch anything. But now I do hydrate. And now, unfortunately, yes, I do get up and have to go to the bathroom.
That's exactly why I'm sitting at the window because I'm be looking at
I'm like,
Danielle
I
like,
don't
no,
care.
she don't need.
You chose
When the flight
that
attendant comes,
aisle
no, she
seat.
don't need to go to the bathroom.
Congratulations.
She done been
You
to the bathroom
have
3 times.
the
She
issue.
good, sis. Keep it moving. So I'll just sit at the window so I can be kind on my flight. Okay. Always in my books. Always. I've never been any place. I've never been
I
any
love
place in this
that.
world
So
without my
what is
books.
always in your
Without
travel bag?
I probably at least got 2. When I went to Paris, I did the Kindle. I took the Kindle White because I need to have more than one book if I'm going to be honest. Books every single time, especially if I travel by car. Like I'm probably going to have like 4 or 5 books and some magazines. Like why? Because I don't know. What if I get in the place and I have to sit for 10 hours? I'm going to be like, you need a book. See, that's why you should have brought a book. I'm actually reading 2 books right now. One book is like When Women Pray by T.D. Jakes. It was a gift. It's
What are you
absolutely
reading right
amazing
now?
read. And the other one is how I got 1 million followers in 30 days on Instagram or something like that. Yeah. You're very welcome.
Okay. I'll wait for the Cliff Notes version of that from you. Thank you very much. And the last question is, I always talk about creating this wellness revolution, try to get women of color to really free themselves from feeling like they have to be a certain way and do all these things,
To
the shoulds and whatever.
trust
What
your
advice would you give
personality
to
and
your
your
younger self to,
preferences.
living
Trust
that
that
Hello Well
there is
lifestyle?
this thing that happens where we naturally want to be a certain way. I was naturally loud. Nobody had to teach me to be loud. I was naturally talkative and like outgoing. And that was just my preference and my personality, right? That's just how I was. But society and all these other people started to tell me that those were not the things that I should be. I should be quieter and I shouldn't talk so much and I shouldn't be so opinionated. But if I had trusted my personality and my preferences, I would have been hella dope a long time ago. Dope was always in me. I just didn't necessarily show up that way, right? Because I was too busy trying not to be so talkative, trying not to be so opinionated and not to take control. Well, I'm a natural born leader. I have a lot to say because I'm a woman with a message, right? And I'm loud so the people in the back can hear me. How about be bad?
I know that's right. I love you. Thank you so much for being on the show and pouring into us today. Again, make sure you guys follow her on Courage Molina everywhere, or wherever you play. I love I said wherever you play. And also make sure you check out our podcast, A Dose of Courage, because it is bomb, bomb, bomb. And another reminder, we are having our masterclass of getting out of survival mode now. So that's happening
Thank
next
you so much for
Thursday,
having me. This
January
was
28th,
hella dope.
and it is free. So make sure you jump on that one. And other than that, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you guys so much for being with us. I love you. All right. Ciao, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.